Hello, good day! Ito nga pala ang inyong Sir Jello at mayroon ako ulit ituturo sa inyo na math video topics. Pero bago yan, huwag niyo munang kalimutang mag-subscribe sa aking YouTube channel na Sir Jello para maging updated kayo sa lahat ng videos na i-upload ko. So for today, we are discussing about diagonals of parallelograms. That includes theorems on rhombus, square, and rectangle. Before that, let's have first the glossary of terms. So we have theorems. A statement needs to be proven before being accepted. The process of showing this to be correct called proof. So in geometry in particular, we are going to deal with proof that is in the form of statements and reasons. Perpendicular. This is the relationship between two lines which meet at a right angle, which is 90-degree angle. Then the word bisect, it is the division of something into two equal or congruent parts, usually by line. So, hindi muna natin gagamitin yung statements and reasons for this topic. So, what we are trying to state here is that we are going to deal with the term theorems that has this definition. So, let us move on now with rhombus. We have theorems on rhombus. Number 1, the diagonals of a rhombus are perpendicular. Number 2, each diagonal of a rhombus bisects opposite angles. So for this particular figure, we have parallelogram gold, which happens to be a rhombus. So we know that rhombus, it has all sides equal. So we have here rhombus gold with the point of intersection of x. So do sa number 1, the diagonals of a rhombus are perpendicular. So if this is the point of intersection at point x, so we can see that this segment, line segment GL, is perpendicular. So this is the symbol for perpendicularity. It's perpendicular to OD, line segment OD. So meaning we have 4 right angles here forming at the point of intersection of x. So we have 4 right angles. We have angle GXO, angle OXL, angle LXD, and angle DXG. So we have 4 right angles. These are right angles. Next, number 2, each diagonal of rhombus bisects opposite angles. So what do we mean by bisect? So when we say bisect, but it divides into something into 2. So for example, if this particular angle ODL, is, let's say, 50 degrees. Then the other angle that bisects this angle is also 50 degrees. Parehas yan 50 degrees. So, we can say that the measure of angle GDL is, just add this one, 50 plus 50 is 100. Since this diagonal bisects, angle GDO is equal to angle ODL, which is 50 degrees. Okay? So that is what we mean by number 2. Which diagonal of a rhombus bisects opposite angles. So, if GDL is 100, the opposite of this angle is also 100. So, kung yung angle GOL, equal din siya dito. The measure of angle GOL, because they are opposite angles. And then, this particular angle bisects this angle. So, GOD, which is 50, is congruent also to angle LOD. 50-50 din siya. So, that's what is meant by number 2, theorem on rhombus. Okay? Next, we have theorems on square. Actually, isa lang to. The diagonals of a square are equal and perpendicular to each other. So, as we all know, the diagonals of a square, so for this particular square, we have square best. So, we have BE, BS. BS, this first diagonal is equal to ET, since these are both diagonals. So, line segment BS is equal to line segment ET. Then they are also perpendicular to each other. So, we can say also that BS is perpendicular to ET at a particular point of intersection here, which is, let's say, point X. So, BS is perpendicular to ET at, so may particular point, at point X. So that means all of the angles that include point X are all right angles. So this is right angle dito, right angle, and then right. So you have 4 right angles. We're going to name all the angles. Okay, so that is the theorem on square. Next, we have the theorems on rectangle. So number 1, if a parallelogram has 1 right angle, then it has 4 right angles, and the parallelogram is a rectangle. Then number 2, the diagonals of a rectangle are congruent. So number 1, since the definition of rectangle, it has 4 right angles. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4. So if angle W, let's say, is a right angle, then it has 4 right angles. So that is the first theorem. So automatic, this parallelogram is a rectangle. And then number 2, the diagonals of a rectangle are congruent. So let us identify the diagonals. So we have WY and XZ. So whatever the length measure of WY is equal to line segment XZ. So therefore, these diagonals are congruent. Okay, so we are already done with the different theorems on rhombus, square, and rectangle that also involves diagonals. So let us have now this activity. So find the length of the longer diagonal in parallelogram fast. So we have here parallelogram fast. So the longer diagonal here is line segment FS. Now let us include here a point of intersection. Let's say letter X. So this is the longer diagonal, FS. Now we know that in a parallelogram, the diagonals bisect each other. So meaning, Fx is equal to Sx. Ayan. So, you can say that Fx, meron siyang given na 3x minus 1. So, we have 3x minus 1 is equal to, our Sx will be 2x plus 7. Then you just transpose 2x on the left side. So, we have 3x minus 2x equals 7 plus 1. So 3x minus 2x is x is equal to 7 plus 1, which is equal to 8. So the value of x is 8. What is now the length, the longer diagonal? So we know that the value of x is 8. So we have fx, so 3x minus 1. So you have 3 times 8 minus 1. So that will be 24 minus 1. So the answer is 23. For Sx, we have 2 times 8 plus 7. So we have 16 plus 7. That is also equal to 23. So if Fx is 23, Xs is also 23. So the length of the longer diagonal will be 46. So the answer is 23 plus 23 will be 46. Okay. Okay, let's go now with number 2. In rhombus RHOM, what is the measure of angle ROH? So we are looking for this angle. So we only have the measure of HMO, which is at 35 degrees. This angle is 35 degrees. So since we already know the properties of a rhombus, so if this particular angle is 35, and we know that the opposite angles of a rhombus bisect each other. So if this is 35, this particular angle is also 35 degrees. So the measure of angle M will be 35 plus 35, that is equal to 70 degrees. Since angle M, the opposite is angle H, that is also the measure of angle H. Now, since in a parallelogram, any two consecutive angles are supplementary, since angle M is 70, then the measure of angle O is equal to 180 degrees minus the measure of angle M. That is 180 degrees minus 70 degrees. So the measure of angle O is 110 degrees. So since the measure of angle O is 110 degrees, the measure of angle R is also 110 degrees. Since O and R are opposite angles. But we are only looking for the measure of ROH, which is half of angle O, which is 110 degrees. So therefore, the measure of angle ROH is equal to, you just divide the measure of angle O. So 110 divided by 2, so that will be 55 degrees. Okay, so this is 55. The other angle ROM is also 55. Since the measure of this full angle or this whole angle is 110 degrees. So the answer is 55 degrees. And then to our last activity, number 3. In rectangle KAYE, YO is 18 centimeters. Find the length of diagonal E. So we know that in a rectangle or in parallelogram in general, since rectangle is a parallelogram, the diagonals bisect each other. So since we know that YO is 18, the measure of YO will be equal to KO. So if YO is 18, KO is also 18. And the measure of this diagonal KY will be equal to 18 plus 18. So the answer is 36 centimeters. So therefore, that is also the length of diagonal AE, which is 36 centimeters, since the diagonals of a rectangle are congruent. So those are the examples of activities for the diagonals of parallelograms. And thank you for watching.